Learning outcome 3, be able to conduct fitness tests. So for this learning outcome, you've got to be taught about different types of fitness tests, how to do them correctly, and make sure that they're reliable with the results. Collect the results as well from every test that you do and use those results as if they were your clients. Then you've got to try and work out whether you think the tests are maximal or submaximal. You've got to give information about that, the test sequence, and then how to interpret the results against normative data. So the different tests you've got to look at are for strength. They are burpee test, squat test, power, vertical jump, standing long jump, agility, shuttle run, Illinois agility run, balance, standing stalk test, flexibility, sit and reach test, and trunk flexion test. Then muscular endurance, number of sit-ups, press-ups, and cardio endurance, the Cooper 12-minute run, and Harvard step test. So these are all very specific tests. You must be able to refer to all of them and go through each of those tests in detail and include all the results from those tests as well. So let's go through this to make sure you know how you're going to do that and the info that you've got to include. There are many different tests available designed to assess different levels of fitness. These fitness tests can then be used to highlight strengths and weaknesses of the individual, design a training program based on these results, which is what you've been doing in LO4, and then compare individual scores to normative data, monitor progress of the training program. So these are all reasons that you would do fitness testing. Fitness testing is vital for athletes to monitor and assess improvements in performance. So it's important we set goals and that motivates the individual. And then we can look at how well they're doing in trying to achieve those goals to see if any gains have been made. What should you consider before setting up and carrying out fitness tests? Well, the first thing you've got to write about in your assignment at the beginning is medical condition of the performer, their age, their gender. Any info you've got about them is important, their level of ability, their experience, and then what are their goals and targets? What do they want to achieve? It's important that we have what's called a PAR-Q or health questionnaire. So we do some health screening to find out if there's anything, any injuries, any medical conditions that we need to be aware of that the athlete or the client that we're working with can disclose to us. They've also got to give us their consent to do the test, and you've got to make sure there's any tests that are not applicable or could compromise the individual, that they're not done, or you do something alternative. So here's an example of a PAR-Q questionnaire. Now, it's really useful for you to get hold of this on the internet and put that in as an example in your assignment. You can make up your own one. And if you do get something off the internet, remember you've got to reference it so that you're not copying it. And if it's not your own work, you're recognizing that. And if the moderator or examiner looks at that work, they can see that you've done that correctly. So once results are collected, you need to interpret them, and you need to interpret them against a set of published standardized readings. We call this normative data, and that really helps you then to decide how good you are. Are you average, below average? Are you excellent, etc.? Results need to be valid. So do they test what they actually set out to? Let's have a look at this then. So if you're a goalkeeper in football, the sit and reach test is going to be really good for measuring flexibility in your legs, but it doesn't measure the flexibility in your arms. So if you're diving to save something, it's not going to be great for your arm action. It's great for your leg action. So if you're kicking a ball, fantastic, but not when you're diving to save it. So even though it's got some validity, you need to discuss it. What are the pros and cons? Because some of these tests may not be completely relevant to the person that you're assessing. The next thing is reliability. How accurate are they? Now, when you've got to imagine you're doing tests, and you've done a lot of these tests already anyway in year 10, but for those tests that you haven't done, you can manufacture those results. You can put those results in based on what you want to achieve or your client wants to achieve. So, okay, you might look at some tests and think, were they completely reliable? There could be things that indicate a lack of reliability, like using a stopwatch, maybe not starting it at the correct time. But the vertical jump test using chalk, that's going to be difficult to make it super accurate because you're not too sure where the chalk has made contact. You're kind of guessing sometimes where it first made contact with the wall. So anything that shows you there could be a lack of reliability, refer to it. Even if you think they're mostly reliable, at least you've discussed it, and the examiner and myself and Mr. Bale can look at that, and Mr. Williams and Mrs. Stradling can look at that and think, okay, they recognize there might be some reliability issues. So reliability, validity, and practicality. Practicality is how practical is the test? Are you doing it in the right environment? An example of that would be trying to do the multi-stage fitness test in the gym upstairs. It's too small. It's not practical. That type of thing. But the tester should be experienced. Equipment should be standardized, so it's fit for purpose. Different performers might have differing motivation to complete the test to the best of their ability. So you need to consider that too. Tests should be repeated to avoid human error. So if you can do them multiple times, 3 times typically, no more, then you can get an average of those. Now, to find out about these tests, to research them, all the information you need is on this website, on BrainMac. So if you go onto BrainMac, you can then choose the test you want, and it gives you all the protocols, gives you some images, gives you the normative data. And where there might be some normative data missing, at least it's got most of the stuff that you need. So this is the go-to website for you guys when you're researching the fitness tests. You also need to then formulate a fitness test result sheet. So remember, you're going to be putting in these test results, but you're going to imagine they are the clients. So all the test stuff that you've got, use your results. And where you haven't got results, let's manufacture them for your client. But you have to have a test result sheet, and you've got to put all of their scores into this sheet. So make that. Devise that yourself. And once you've got it, put in your data. A lot of you then were missing this information when your previous submissions of assignments. This is something we really need everybody to do. Make your own fitness test sheet, result sheet, get your results in. So these are the different tests you have to research. So again, go onto the BrainMac website, find out about them, and then you can write down the protocols. How do you perform the test? And then you can write down your results next to those. So I'm going to go through them now. So for strength, you need to write about the burpee test and the squat test. Power, vertical jump test and standing long jump test. Agility, shuttle run test, Illinois agility run test. Balance, standing stalk test. Flexibility is the sit and reach test and the trunk flexion test. Muscular endurance is the number of sit-ups in a defined time period and number of press-ups in a defined time period. These are examples of normative data that you'll get from BrainMac. So these are tables that tell you whether you're excellent, good, above average for males and females. So they give you all of those figures. And from those figures, of course, you can then discuss those, or you can refer to them, write about them. You can say, my client managed to get good, and you can know this because their age is 18 to 25. They got between 40 and 49. So you need to be able to say what they got and why you recognize it is good. You need to give that detail. So there's another example of normative data for females for the sit-up test in 1 minute. Cardiovascular endurance, you've got to write about the Cooper run, the Cooper 12-minute run, and the Harvard step test. Now, a lot of you may have done the 12-minute run as part of one of our challenges, our virtual fitness challenges. Absolutely brilliant. For the Harvard step test, a little bit more complicated. It's about recovery time. So you step up and down to a beat, which is normally dictated by a metronome. So you do it at a set rhythm, a set beat, and then you have to count your heart rate 1 minute, and then 2 minutes, and then 3 minutes after exercise. The quicker it comes down, the better your cardiovascular endurance. Now, after every single test, you must also write whether it's maximal or submaximal. So is it going to push you to your absolute maximum, so you're going as hard as you can? Or is it submaximal, so you're not going as hard as you can? You're building, or you're staying at a steady level. So the Harvard step test would be submaximal. The Cooper 12-minute run, you're going as fast as you can to cover as greatest range of ground in 12 minutes as possible. So that's maximal. So after every test, you need to make a reference about those two. The test sequence must always be done the same. So when you do a retest, so for LO4, you're going to have your results from LO3, working out what the weakness areas are from those. And then at the end of your training program, you're going to retest your client and you're going to compare those test results. So it's important that when you do the retest, it's done in exactly the same order, if possible on the same day and the same time of day. So everything is almost the same. So the results become really accurate and you can compare them accurately. Again, at the end of every single test information you've got to have normative data, and you must say, is it valid? Was it reliable? Now you've got to do that as if you were doing the tests again, and that it's fresh. Was it reliable? Did you do them properly? Is it valid for this person that you're testing in the team that you're looking at? And you must have all that normative data. So this is a lot of info for you to include. So here's a few examples of the kind of thing. This is really going to help you now. So for this one here, we've got strength. So we've named the component of fitness. We've got the name of the test. We've got a description of how to perform the test. Then we've got the normative data. Then the result the client got is here. And then a brief description, which I think should be more for this. You could put a bit more detail to say what column that fits in. Is it above average, below average, etc. Same then, power. The name of the test that measures the power, the protocols, how you perform test, the normative data, and then the result of the client down here. So they've got the results of the client there. Remember, I'm also advising you to use a fitness test result sheet to put it all in as well. So you're really giving lots of information. There's one for the Illinois agility test, and you've got a diagram provided as well. Diagrams are fantastic because if you can have diagrammatic information, it helps visualize what the test looks like, what you've got to do, which is great. Now you can see here that all the normative data is referenced. So in brackets, it's Davis et al. 2000. So whenever you get this, if you've got it from BrainMac will often reference where they got it from as well. Just make sure you do that so we know you're not copying the information. Right then, this is how you structure your assignment, everybody. This is what you should have, an introduction. So you're mentoring a player football squad, it could be netball, hockey, whatever you decided to do. You must feed back to the coach on the fitness levels of this player. It's a good idea to state the position of this player and the fitness attributes you would expect to be the most important for them. Then you've got to describe each test and whether it's submaximal or maximal. The protocols for each test, how do you perform them? You must have the results, so use your own results or your partners as the clients. Compare these results to normative data, so you may have to research that, go to the BrainMac website, discuss the validity and reliability of the tests that you are doing, and last but not least, make sure you make reference to the sequence of tests, so when you do a retest, it's done correctly.